4Sides TV on a special edition of the discussion over the ongoing war of vengeance between Israel and Hamas powered Palestine. Let us invite Mr. Sudhakar Sharma, an authority on the international humanitarian law, to know more about the issue in all its detail. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
How would you see the prevailing war between the Israel and Palestine? Do you think it is the more mere outcome of provoking the Hamas?
This is a wonderful way to start our discussion because I feel that this could be due to the provokings of the Hamas, which has taken place on October 7th, killing nearly 1,400 people and abducting nearly 239 hostages. So it was a kind of devastating effect which they have created into the minds of Israel. But behind all these things, when we really look at the historical point of view, there has always been a kind of feud between the Arabs and the Israelis. So it was a question of interest between two major religious groups which was happening ever since. So historically, if you look at Middle East, you find that it has always passed through a kind of trauma, anguish, agony, and it was really passing through all types of troubles. It was never at peace with itself. That's why the world community is always looking at Middle East as to how they could provide a kind of succor to this very place. And the recent provokings of Hamas have really created a kind of situation where Israel could never go back because its civilians were killed and so many other civilians were held as captives. And seeing the situation, Netanyahu has taken a kind of decision to go all out to clear the Hamas once and forever and capture the Gaza Strip entirely under their own control. So I believe that the historical factors as well as the provokings both have given a kind of shape to this long-lasting war. And as Netanyahu has rightly put it, the war is on, and it would really go on until its mission is complete.
So, sir, should we perceive this as an age-old conflict between Israelis and Arabs in this modern outlook?
Yeah, definitely, because as you rightly said, it is a kind of modern outlook of the same things. So, you say that the same factors are playing their own fold. They are unveiling the same kind of anguish, the religious differences which they were carrying within them ever since came to a kind of stage once again. I firmly believe that Hamas has really been the culprit in this entire issue because it provoked and it went with such a kind of rocketry which we have never seen in the near future. So that type of situation has really made Israel take a very firm hold, firm step, firm decision to thrash the Hamas and to clear it completely, to wipe it out once and forever, because so many appeals were made to the international community by the Israeli government, because they were saying that, as said by the Palestinians, this Hamas group is not a freedom fighting group. If it were really so, they would have followed a kind of peace process, but you don't see that anywhere. They were always adapting to the methods of missionary, war strategy, and they were always giving pain to their counterparts, which we don't accept in any kind of religious settlement. Since the land of Jerusalem is very holy to both the religious communities, it becomes pertinent on both the parties to come to the table, discuss the issue openly, and sort out all the differences. What is there at the end of the day? If both the communities select to set up a kind of a community base at the same place, what is going to happen? They can really coexist peacefully. They can have their own religious practices and they can develop mutually well. But this has not been injected into the blood of either the parties. And the Jews were equally interested in capturing the entire place for themselves. At the same time, the Hamas and the Lebanon-sponsored Hezbollah, both were really, in fact, the brainchilds of Iran. So, Iran has been giving them all the weaponry, wealth, and a kind of war strategy to move forward. Because without Iran, I would definitely say that both Hamas and Hezbollah would not be in a position to take up such a big stand and to attack Israel in the fashion which we are seeing now. definitely the invisible hand of Iran is behind both these attacks.
So, taking to unwanted proportions with
Yes.
each passing day, what would be the consequences of this devastating war?
Oh, definitely. This is really unthinkable because when we look at the everyday events which are unfolding day by day, it's really becoming quite disastrous. So you see a situation of panic every day when we open the newspaper or when we look into any kind of news feature, we see pictures of buildings which are completely dilapidated, completely destroyed. Devastation you see everywhere in the Gaza Strip, and that is really painful to everyone, not expected in any civilian community. And at this juncture, I would really say that the international humanitarian law is not being followed by either of the parties. Both have clearly deviated from the set principles which the international humanitarian law very clearly says. It says that no civilian or no civilian object should be targeted. But here there is a gross violation on both sides. So this is happening against the wishes and against the pleas of the international community, and the same thing has been going on and with equal vengeance on both parties. And now the Israeli government has made it very clear that its ground operations would continue until all the hostages or all the captives are taken back by the Israeli government and the entire group of Hamas is clearly wiped out from the land of Gaza, because they clearly see that as long as Hamas is alive, even to a very minute degree or percentage, there would not be any kind of settlement or peace or growth or development or any other positive initiative in that entire place. So that's the stance of Israel, and the proportion would really be unthinkable because the weaponry is like that, the war strategy is like that, and the kind of support, unknown support, which Israel is getting, on the other hand, which the Palestine is getting. The entire Islamic community has been really aiding Palestine because it is in the interest of their own religion. It's the religious pursuit which makes them go along with them. That's why we find that the war is basically between two major religions of the world. So this is taking a kind of international dimension, and it would be really unthinkable at this stage to really come to a kind of a framework as to what would really take shape.
Sir, it is interesting to note that there is no strong mediation
Yes.
as yet to find a solution to this ongoing tussle.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
what do you say about this?
You have rightly said about this because it's really a kind of surprise. In fact, to note that the international community is showing a kind of lukewarm response to such a big international fight. Now the war has taken a kind of it has become a full-fledged civil war between two countries, and Hamas has only ignited a kind of spark. Now it has taken into a very big war, and that too it would really not stop very easily. So the international community has not shown any directive or step. The recent advancement is only by the United Nations, where they have taken a step to appeal to the international community to bring a kind of pause, because civilians are getting really affected, the children are getting affected, there is no medical aid, civil supplies are not there, oil has been completely blocked, and even their close neighbor Egypt has closed its borders. It is not opening it because they would fear that millions would enter Egypt and would create a kind of permanent problem for the localites. So the Egyptian government is also not in a position to invite anyone. And as you see, the entire Middle East is having a kind of passing through a kind of economic crisis, with each country suffering from its own problem. Like you see Syria, it is having a typical problem for itself. And you see even the country like Saudi is also passing through a transition stage. So what to speak of minor countries? Here in this respect, we feel that the international communities, especially I would mention the name of Qatar. It is the third richest country with oil reserves, and it has got a kind of friendly bias to both the groups. It is in the best position to bring both the parties together, but it is also not able to do to the extent it wants to do. because the differences between these two parties have really grown so big. The gulf is so wide that to bring them together to a point is become really difficult. Like as you have seen, the war between Russia and Ukraine has gone behind. It has stretched beyond the capabilities of anyone to control it. Similar situation is happening it, and both Qatar and China, which earlier had some ambitions, and even the Chinese diplomats went, they flew to America also to meet the counterparts, but their approach is also is quite limited and not present in the extent to which it has to. But the process is really going on, but it would not be sufficient to bring the war to an end as of now.
So, sir, why is Lebanon-based Hezbollah silent so far on the face of such a calamity before the befriended Hamas outfit in the present war?
Yeah, definitely. This is something which is surprising the international community, I would say, because Lebanon wouldn't have waited so long. Because Lebanon's group of Hezbollah and Hamas, they are both like twin brothers.
Yes.
If there is any problem with Hamas, immediately Hezbollah would rush in. And in the same way, if there is any aid required for Hezbollah, Hamas would rush in. But this is for the first time we are seeing that Hezbollah is really maintaining kind of restraint which was not thought of. It could be due to two reasons. The first one could be due to the economic crisis which the Lebanon is experiencing now, because there is a kind of severe economic crisis which is preventing the Lebanon government to give any kind of initiative to their Hezbollah group to participate or to take any interest in other countries' affairs. And the second thing is, the Hezbollah group, once it starts any attack, definitely there would be a kind of civil war again between Israel and Lebanon. So the north and south parts of Israel would be affected simultaneously, but this war would take a very big dimension. It would enter into a kind of very big war. So the Lebanon community may not be willing to invite any kind of catastrophe unto or upon themselves. That's why I believe that Hezbollah is maintaining a kind of political restraint, but I don't think it would do so in the days to come, because the provocations or the kind of assertiveness which Israel is showing upon Gaza is growing day by day, and that might provoke Hezbollah to join hands with Hamas at some stage little later, or if the international community comes to a kind of understanding and brings a kind of restraint between these two parties, maybe the war could take a nice pause, at least to enter into the stage of discussions. Once they come to the table, there will be some kind of solution awaiting them. Then things might take a different turn, and willingly and God willingly, we really feel that it has to take such a positive turn and peace should descend between both the countries.
Yes, sir. Sir, why is China adapting an approach of caution with respect to finding an amicable solution to the problem with repercussions all across?
Definitely, because China, as you all know, has got a policy of expanding itself beyond the territories. It wants to amass the wealth, resources, it wants to capture the best from the world unto itself. So, you have seen a lot of human rights violations in China also. They are still going on, but China is very adamant. And why China is silent is that it is having a kind of cautious practice of bringing things to a kind of stall. Of late, you have seen that China has lost its good image which it was carrying earlier in the international community. Ever since the COVID has taken place, the world is very clear whether it is expressed, latent or inherent. The world is having a kind of feeling that China is the culprit in spreading such a global pandemic. So, China wants to shed that negative image. It wants to make itself very free, gain a kind of positive image. It wants to be the real peace ambassador in the Middle East also, especially and only for its own selfish ends. It does not want to bring peace for the sake of peace, but to flourish its business. China has got the constraint of giving it to someone, at the same time taking back from something from them, because China has been depending a lot on oil reserves of Middle East. It needs them extensively. At the same time, it wants its products to be taking entering actively into the markets of Middle East. Already it is doing very good business with both Iran, Israel, and with Syria, Lebanon, and all the other countries, and even the Palestine also. So it wants to be in a kind of friendly mode with everyone. That is why China is following a policy of restraint. But the first conflict statement of China has really dampened the spirits of Israel, definitely, because it has not mentioned the atrocities of Hamas at all. It has been very clear and clever in eliminating the devastating things, provokings made by Hamas. That's why Israel is already disappointed with China. China knows very well that it is not in good books with Israel. So it is trying to cover up that and maintain a policy of mediation. So that is why it is taking time to shape things, to figure out. Hopefully, the diplomats of China might bring something new to the table very in the days to come.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for being here and sharing your thoughts.
Okay.
Thank you for watching 4 Sides TV with me, Anjali. See you all with another interesting topic.